Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about why modern logistics is an environment that survives on pure speed, and how one manager's obsession with a dusty old book almost destroyed an entire company in less than a week. I'm a data analyst and route coordinator for a massive national logistics firm. To give you a visual of my day-to-day, imagine a giant wall of monitors filled with moving dots. We manage hundreds of 18-wheelers crossing the country, carrying everything from life-saving medicine to high-end car parts. In this industry, time isn't just money, time is survival. Decisions are made in seconds. If there's an accident on a highway, I reroute 3 trucks in less than a minute with 2 clicks on my keyboard. It's a high-stakes, high-adrenaline dance of steel and data. I had been working there for 5 years with a spotless record, until the board of directors decided to hire Don Alberto as our new operations manager. Now, Alberto didn't come from the world of transport. He was a man of stiff suits, rigid briefcases, and a mindset trapped in the 1950s. His obsession wasn't results, it was bureaucracy. To him, a job wasn't well done unless it was backed by a mountain of stamped physical paperwork. On his first Monday in the office, he gathered us all around and dropped a massive, hardbound, 300-page book on the table. It was the Structural Protocol Manual, edited in 1998. It was a document that hadn't been opened since the invention of the smartphone. From this moment on, Alberto announced, straightening his silk tie, this manual is our Bible. If a procedure isn't in this book, it doesn't exist. I want every action, no matter how small, to be documented, classified, and executed according to the corresponding code. Any deviation will be grounds for severe disciplinary action. I tried to explain to him that following those obsolete rules would slow down deliveries by half and collapse the entire grid. Alberto looked at me with absolute disdain and simply said, "Rules are there to be followed, Marcos. Obey or find another job." I accepted the challenge with a very quiet, very dangerous smile. If he wanted us to play bureaucrats, I was going to give him the performance of a lifetime. By Tuesday morning, I arrived at the office ready to be the most perfect, obedient employee in the history of the company. Instead of turning on my computer and starting on the urgent morning routes, I pulled a measuring tape out of my backpack. According to Article 4, Section B of his beloved 1998 manual, before starting the technical workday, an employee must perform a physical and visual inspection of the workstation's ergonomics. I spent 45 minutes measuring the exact angle of my chair's tilt, the precise distance in centimeters from my pupils to the monitor, and filling out a triplicate occupational risk prevention form by hand. When Don Alberto walked past my desk and saw that the morning routes were at a standstill, he demanded an explanation. Without raising my voice, I pointed to the page in the manual. "Just following the initial safety protocol, boss. We don't want any lawsuits for ergonomic negligence, do we?" He couldn't say a word. It was his rule. But the real fun started at noon. I received a high-priority call from one of our biggest clients. A refrigerated truck carrying perishable goods needed an immediate route change to avoid a massive highway closure. Normally, I would make that change in 20 seconds. But I opened the ancient manual. Page 84. Any modification to external routes must be preceded by a request for triple internal validation in physical format. I took a deep breath and spoke to the client in my most professional, robotic tone. "I am deeply sorry, sir. According to our new management protocol, I must mail you a physical form. You must print it, sign it by hand, and return it to us via certified snail mail so the committee can validate it. Until then, I am legally unable to alter your truck's path." The client started screaming so loudly through the phone that I had to move the receiver away from my ear. "It's the new management's policy, sir," I repeated calmly. "Protocol safety is our priority." I hung up. The chaos was just warming up. By Wednesday, our once frenetic logistics office had been transformed into a library in slow motion. No one sent a single email without first passing it through a style and importance classification review, as demanded by Chapter 7. If a coworker needed a new ballpoint pen, they had to fill out a non-inventoried material request form and wait for the signature, in blue ink only, of 2 different department directors. Morale was actually sky-high because we were all secretly enjoying the disaster, but productivity was at absolute zero. At 4 in the afternoon, the situation outside the warehouse reached a breaking point. The phones wouldn't stop ringing with furious clients. But even worse, we had 10 massive 18-wheelers parked at the exit gate, blocking the entire main avenue, losing thousands of dollars for every hour they spent idling. Don Alberto stormed out of his office, sweating through his shirt, his face a bright shade of crimson. He burst into the operator's room yelling, "Marcos, there are 10 trucks blocking the main road. Give them the clearance code to leave right now through the system." I didn't touch my mouse. I simply opened the 1998 manual to page 122, the section on pre-digital heavy vehicle inspection. "I can't do that, Alberto," I replied, tracing the paragraph with my finger. "The manual requires that, before authorizing any departure, the coordinator must go down to the yard and manually verify the serial number printed on the rubber of every single tire on the vehicle. An articulated truck has 18 wheels. I just finished with the first truck, and I've got grease all over my hands. I have 9 trucks left. I estimate I'll be able to clear them by about 8 p.m. Alberto slammed my desk with his fist. Forget the damn manual and get those trucks moving now, he roared, completely losing his cool. I stopped what I was doing, very slowly. I pulled my smartphone out, opened the voice recorder app, and placed it on the desk. I looked him straight in the eye. Alberto, are you giving me a direct verbal order to violate the structural protocol manual that you yourself forced us to follow under threat of termination? I just want to make sure this is recorded for human resources. Alberto went pale. His lip was actually trembling. He knew that if he admitted that on tape, his entire reputation as a by-the-book manager would vanish. He turned around and locked himself in his office, leaving 10 trucks blocking the street. Thursday was absolute, unmitigated disaster. The company was bleeding money. Thousands of dollars lost every hour, late fees stacking up, and refrigerated goods starting to spoil on the loading docks. We had taken malicious compliance to the level of high art. Desperate to stop the bleeding, Alberto tried to call an emergency meeting in the conference room with the 3 main coordinators to find a quick fix. We walked into the room and sat down. Alberto was about to start speaking, but I interrupted him by raising my hand. Alberto, stop right there, I said, opening the heavy book. According to the corporate meeting regulations on page 201, any meeting involving more than 2 employees requires the prior drafting of a handwritten session minute. Furthermore, the topics to be discussed must be classified according to the manual's urgency index and filed in 3 different color-coded physical folders before the first official word is spoken. I handed him a stack of blank paper and a pen. Alberto had to sit there in silence, grinding his teeth so hard I thought they might shatter, spending an entire hour filling out useless paperwork just so he could talk to his own team. He was a prisoner in the jail he had built himself. The climax of the crisis came Thursday evening. The CEO of the company, the owner of the entire logistics empire, called directly from the headquarters. He wanted to know why the production and deliveries from our central hub had dropped by 80% in just 3 days. Alberto tried to save his skin by blaming the staff, claiming we had a defiant attitude and a lack of motivation. But I had been preparing for this call. I had created a massive spreadsheet that documented every single minute and second the team had spent filling out Alberto's bureaucracy. I sent the file to the CEO, CCing the entire board of directors. The subject line: Absolute Efficiency Report based on new management protocol. In the body, I detailed with brutal honesty that the team was working harder than ever before, but that 100% of our effort was being diverted to mandatory paperwork from 1998. Alberto had just dug his own grave. Friday morning, the tension in the air was so thick you could cut it with a knife. At exactly 9 o'clock, the main office doors swung open. It was the CEO in person. He had flown in from the headquarters unannounced. He didn't go to Alberto's office. He walked straight to my desk. He looked at the mountain of useless forms stacked on my workstation. He looked through the window at the frustrated truck drivers smoking in the yard. And then he looked at the 1998 manual open on my keyboard. He nodded slowly, finally understanding the level of insanity we had been subjected to. Without saying a word, the CEO walked toward Don Alberto's office, stepped inside, and slammed the door. We couldn't hear the exact words, but the owner's shouts made the office windows vibrate. You could hear him all the way down in the underground parking lot. It was 10 minutes of absolute corporate fury. When the door finally opened, Alberto walked out. His eyes were glued to the floor, his tie was undone, and he was carrying a cardboard box with his coffee mug and his little decorative plant. He had been fired on the spot for gross operational mismanagement and for nearly bankrupting the central hub. The CEO stood in the middle of the office, looked at all of us, and announced in a booming voice, "As of this very second, that cursed protocol manual is suspended indefinitely and permanently. Throw it in the trash. Use your common sense, use your computers, and for the love of God, get those trucks off my street right now." The entire office erupted in cheers and applause. It took me exactly 10 minutes on my computer to fix and unblock every single route and problem that had piled up over those 4 agonizing days. Efficiency returned to record levels within hours, simply because we were finally allowed to work free from absurd rules. I stashed that heavy 300-page manual in the deepest drawer of my desk, never to see the light of day again. However, I kept one single piece of paper, the ergonomic chair inspection form. I have it framed and hanging on my cubicle wall as a constant reminder of what happens when someone tries to govern every second of your life with rules that make no sense. Sit Augusta Dale likewise suscernit paramos.